Every year, Americans spend more than $300 billion on home furnishings. New rugs, accent walls, throw pillows by the dozen. And every year, the same rooms still feel cluttered, chaotic, and cheap. Meanwhile, a traditional Japanese home built with bare wood, paper screens, and almost nothing on the walls can make a five-star hotel lobby feel overdressed. What nobody knew, at least in the West until very recently, was that this effect is not accidental. It traces back to a tea master in 16th century Kyoto who was handed a small room and told to make it beautiful. His answer was to strip nearly everything out of it. His name was Sen no Rikyu. Born in 1522, he rose to become the personal tea master of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the military ruler who unified Japan, and the design philosophy he codified over 400 years ago is still the fastest way to make any room look more expensive than it is. Not by buying anything, by removing 11 specific things. Nobody was paying attention to Japanese interior philosophy in the Western world for most of modern history. Designers in Europe and America spent centuries stacking furniture, layering wallpaper, and gilding every surface that sat still long enough. The logic was simple. More stuff meant more money, and more money meant more taste. The Palace of Versailles had over 2,000 rooms. That was supposed to be the goal. Japan went the other direction entirely. Starting in the Muromachi period, roughly the 1300s through the 1500s, Japanese architecture began absorbing principles from Zen Buddhism, ideas like impermanence, restraint, and the deliberate appreciation of what is missing. While European aristocrats were filling their palaces with tapestries and gold leaf, Japanese aesthetics were evolving around one radical premise. The empty space in a room is not a failure. It is the room's most important feature. Sen no Rikyu took that premise to its logical extreme. Before him, Japanese tea ceremonies had become extravagant displays of wealth. Wealthy hosts competed over who had the most expensive Chinese-made teacups, the most ornate tea houses, the most lavish presentation. Rikyu looked at all of it and saw the opposite of beauty. He replaced expensive Chinese porcelain with rough, handmade raku pottery. He shrank the tea house down to a 2-tatami mat room, roughly 6 feet by 6 feet. He stripped away every piece of decoration that was not absolutely essential until the only things left were the tea, the guest, and the quiet. The result was Wabi-Sabi, the aesthetic of deliberate simplicity and appreciation for imperfection. And 4 centuries later, it is still the foundation of everything Japanese interior design does right. That idea shaped everything from temple design to tea ceremony rooms to the way an ordinary family in Kyoto arranged their living space. And today, it still works. Not because it is trendy, but because the human eye responds to restraint the same way it always has. A single flower in a ceramic vase on a clean shelf reads as intentional. 15 objects crammed onto the same shelf reads as a yard sale. So, here are the 11 things to take out of your home, each one rooted in a Japanese tradition that has been quietly producing the same result for centuries. Number 11. Excess throw pillows. The Japanese concept of kanso means simplicity, and it is one of the 7 aesthetic principles of Zen. Kanso does not mean empty. It means that every object in a space earns its place. Nothing decorative stays unless it serves a clear visual or functional purpose. Now, look at your couch. If there are more pillows on it than a person could comfortably sit among, you have a kanso problem. In a traditional Japanese sitting room, a zabuton cushion goes on the tatami floor, 1 per person, and that is it. The room breathes. The eye rests. Western living rooms do the opposite. Throw pillows get stacked 5, 6, sometimes 8 deep, in clashing patterns and textures, until the sofa looks like it belongs in a department store window rather than a home. The irony is that expensive interior designers almost never do this. Walk into a high-end furniture showroom in Tokyo or Milan and count the pillows. You will get to 2, maybe 3, all in coordinated tones. That restraint is what signals money. Remove every pillow that does not serve a function or that clashes with the dominant color of the room. Keep 2 or 3 at most. Match them to the couch, not to each other. Your sofa will immediately look like it cost twice what you paid for it. And here is the part that catches people off guard. The pillows you remove do not need to go in the trash. Kanso is not about deprivation. Store the extras. If you miss a specific one, bring it back. The point is that a deliberate choice was made, not that you own fewer things. That distinction matters because it is the difference between minimalism and curation. Japan never aimed for minimalism. It aimed for precision. Number 10. Bold accent walls. For most of recorded Japanese architectural history, interior walls were finished in soft, natural tones derived from the materials themselves. Clay plasters in warm beige, unfinished cedar in pale gold, washi paper screens in cream and ivory. The palette came from the earth, and it stayed close to the earth. This was not a limitation. It was a choice. In a traditional Japanese home, the walls were never meant to compete with what was displayed on them. A hanging scroll in a Tokonoma alcove needs a quiet background to command the room. A bright red or electric blue wall behind it would destroy the effect entirely. And yet, the accent wall trend in Western interior design asks homeowners to do exactly that. Paint one wall a bold, contrasting color and let it scream for attention. The problem is that a loud wall fights every piece of furniture, every piece of art, and every object near it for dominance. The room stops feeling curated and starts feeling noisy. You do not need to paint everything white. The Japanese tradition actually avoids stark white because it reads as sterile rather than warm. Instead, look at the natural tones that traditional Japanese interiors rely on. Warm grays, sand, clay, soft greens drawn from moss and bamboo. These are the colors that expensive homes use because they let the furniture and the architecture do the talking. If you have a bold accent wall, paint over it with something muted. The shift will be immediate. Number 9. Heavy, dark curtains. Walk into a traditional Japanese home and you will not find a single set of thick, floor-to-ceiling drapes. Instead, you will find shoji screens. These are wooden lattice frames covered in translucent washi paper, and they have been a defining feature of Japanese architecture since the Heian period, roughly 1,000 years ago. Shoji screens do something that heavy curtains refuse to do. They let light in. Not all of it, not a blinding flood. They filter sunlight into a soft, diffused glow that fills a room without creating harsh shadows or hot spots. The effect is gentle, even, and calming. It makes a room feel open and breathable, like the space has nothing to hide. Heavy curtains do the opposite. They block natural light, trap dust, and visually shrink a room by covering the walls in fabric that absorbs attention. Dark curtains in particular make windows look smaller and ceilings look lower. And in rooms that are already short on natural light, thick drapes can turn a living space into something that feels closer to a cave. Replace heavy curtains with lighter options. Sheer linen panels, light cotton, or even simple roller blinds in a neutral tone will open the room up dramatically. You are not trying to block the world out. You are trying to let the right amount of it in, the same way a shoji screen has been doing for 10 centuries. There is also a practical angle worth mentioning. Thick, dark curtains absorb heat in summer and trap moisture year-round, which ages the fabric and creates a musty quality in the room. Lighter fabrics breathe. They move when a window is open. That subtle movement adds life to a room the way a heavy velvet panel never can. Japanese architects understood this centuries ago, and it is one reason shoji screens were designed to slide open entirely, removing the barrier between inside and outside in a single motion. Number 8. Visible trash cans and recycling bins. This one might sound minor, but it reflects a deep principle in Japanese domestic life. In Japan, trash and waste are treated as things that should be managed invisibly. Walk through most residential neighborhoods in Tokyo or Osaka and you will notice something odd. Public trash cans are almost non-existent. People carry their waste home with them, sort it meticulously, and store it out of sight until collection day. Inside the home, the same discipline applies. Garbage bins are tucked inside cabinets, beneath sinks, or behind sliding panels. The goal is simple. Waste should never be the first thing a person sees when they walk into a room. In most Western kitchens and bathrooms, the trash can sits right out in the open. Sometimes it is overflowing. Sometimes it has a visible liner hanging over the rim. And no matter how clean the rest of the room is, that one exposed bin drags the entire space down. Think about it from the perspective of a visitor walking into your kitchen for the first time. Their eye is going to land on whatever stands out. A visible trash can with a crumpled paper towel sticking out of it stands out. A clean counter with nothing below it, except closed cabinetry, does not. Move your bins inside a cabinet. Use a pull-out bin system if your kitchen allows it. In the bathroom, switch to a small, lidded container that blends with the decor. This single change can shift the entire feel of a room from lived-in to polished. Number 7. Cluttered countertops. In 2009, a Japanese author named Hideko Yamashita published a book that introduced the concept of danshari to the world. The word breaks into 3 parts. Dan means refuse, sha means dispose, ri means separate. Together, they describe a system of deliberate detachment from the objects that accumulate in a home without being truly needed. Yamashita was not the first person to tell people to clean up. What made danshari different was the philosophy underneath it. Drawn from yoga and Zen Buddhist practice, danshari asks you to evaluate your relationship with each item in your space. Not whether the item has value, but whether it has value to you right now in your current life. Kitchen countertops are where danshari matters most visually. The toaster you use once a month, the knife block you inherited, the stack of mail, the fruit bowl that is mostly for show. These things pile up gradually, and each one individually seems harmless. Together, they create a surface that looks disorganized and crowded. In Japanese kitchens, countertops are kept almost completely clear. Appliances go inside cabinets when not in active use. Utensils hang on interior hooks or sit in closed drawers. The cooking surface becomes a clean, open workspace that doubles as a visual statement. Clear your counters down to the essentials. Keep what you use daily and store everything else. A bare countertop with a single kettle on it looks intentional. A countertop buried under 12 appliances looks like a storage unit. Yamashita's books have sold over 6 million copies worldwide, and her approach arrived years before Marie Kondo brought the KonMari method to Western audiences. The reason both philosophies resonated so deeply outside Japan is that they solved a problem Western design culture had created, but never named. We had been trained to organize clutter instead of questioning why the clutter existed in the first place. Danshari asks the harder question. And the kitchen counter, the most visible horizontal surface in most homes, is where the answer shows up first. Number 6. Excessive wall art and photo collages. This is where one of Japan's most important spatial concepts comes in. The concept of ma. The character for ma combines the symbols for gate and sun. It translates loosely to negative space, or the interval between things. And in Japanese design, ma is not the absence of something. It is the presence of something else. Breathing room, visual silence. A deliberate decision to leave space open so the eye has somewhere to rest. In traditional Japanese architecture, walls are treated with enormous respect. A washitsu, the classic tatami-floored room, might have a single hanging scroll on one wall and nothing else. The empty plaster around it is not blank, it is active. It is doing the work of drawing attention to the one piece that was chosen to be there. Western gallery walls do the opposite. They pack as many framed photos, prints, posters, and canvases onto a single wall as geometry allows. And the more frames that go up, the less any individual piece matters. The eye bounces around without landing anywhere. The wall becomes visual noise, and the room feels smaller and more cluttered than it actually is. Here is the test. Stand in front of your most decorated wall and try to describe what is on it in one sentence. If you cannot do that, you have too much up there. Take down everything except the 1 or 2 pieces that genuinely matter to you. Leave open wall space around them, the way a museum would present a painting worth looking at. That is ma in action. and it will make your home feel like a place that was designed, not just decorated. If you are finding this useful, hit subscribe. I cover the history behind everyday design every week. By 2020, the influence of Japanese spatial philosophy had spread so far into Western interior design that magazines and studios from New York to Stockholm were openly crediting concepts like and Wabi-Sabi in their layouts. The ideas were no longer niche, they were mainstream, and the next 5 items on this list show why that shift happened. Number 5. Scattered decorative objects on every surface. During the Muromachi period, roughly 600 years ago, a feature began appearing in Japanese reception rooms that would reshape how the entire culture thought about display. It was called the Tokonoma, a recessed alcove, slightly raised above the tatami floor, built into the most important room of the house. The Tokonoma had one rule: you do not fill it. You select one thing, maybe 2, and you display them with enough space around them that the eye has no choice but to focus. A single hanging scroll, a ceramic bowl, a seasonal flower arrangement. The items rotated with the seasons and the occasion. What never changed was the principle. One featured piece, given room to breathe, commands more attention than 20 objects crammed onto a shelf. Now look at the surfaces in your home. The mantelpiece, the coffee table, the side tables, and bookshelves. If every flat surface in your room is holding a candle, a figurine, a framed photo, a decorative bowl, and a stack of art books, you have turned your entire home into the opposite of a Tokonoma. Nothing stands out because everything is competing. The fix is surgical. Pick one surface per room to be your Tokonoma. Display 1 or 2 objects on it that you genuinely love. Clear the rest. Put the extra objects in a box and rotate them seasonally, the same way a Japanese household has been doing for centuries. When a guest walks in, their eye will land on the one thing you chose to show them, and the room will feel considered instead of cluttered. Number 4. Tangled cables and visible wires. There is a Japanese aesthetic concept called shibui. It is often translated as subtle, understated, or quietly refined. Shibui does not announce itself. It is the difference between a room that looks effortlessly clean and a room that is trying too hard. Exposed wires destroy shibui instantly. A beautiful wooden media console with 3 power strips and a tangle of black cables spilling off the back of it is no longer beautiful. It is a piece of furniture with a problem attached to it. The same goes for phone chargers draped across nightstands, Ethernet cables snaking along baseboards, and power cords running visibly from lamps to outlets. Japanese interior spaces handle this by routing cables behind walls, through built-in channels, or inside furniture designed to conceal them. The average Western home has dozens of devices plugged in at any given time, and most of those devices are trailing a visible cord to the nearest outlet. You do not need to rewire your house. Cable management boxes, adhesive cord channels, and simple Velcro ties can hide 90% of visible wiring in an afternoon. And once those cables disappear, the room instantly reads as more intentional, because a room with no visible clutter signals that someone cared enough to handle the details. Shibui is one of the hardest Japanese aesthetic concepts to translate because it lives in what you do not notice. A shibui room does not announce its quality. You walk in and feel that something is right without being able to pinpoint exactly what. That feeling comes from the absence of distraction, and visible cables are one of the most common distractions in a modern room. They are the visual equivalent of background noise that you stop hearing until someone turns it off, and suddenly the silence itself feels better. Number 3. Cheap artificial plants. The Japanese art of ikebana, flower arranging, has been practiced since the 6th century. It arrived alongside Buddhism from China and evolved over the following 1,000 years into a disciplined art form with named schools, codified techniques, and a philosophy that treats each arrangement as a meditation on nature, balance, and impermanence. The key word there is impermanence. Ikebana arrangements are built to change. The flowers wilt, the branches dry, the arrangement is disassembled, and a new one takes its place. This cycle is the point. A living arrangement marks the season. It connects the interior of the home to the world outside. A fresh branch of cherry blossom in spring says something about where and when you are. A dusty plastic fern in the corner of a bathroom says nothing at all. Cheap artificial plants became a shortcut for people who wanted greenery without the maintenance. And in theory, that makes sense. In practice, fake plants collect dust, fade in sunlight, and fool exactly nobody. They sit in the same spot for years without changing, which is the opposite of what plants actually do. And they signal to anyone visiting that you wanted the appearance of nature without the commitment to it. Replace them with real plants if you can maintain them. Even a single potted plant that you water and care for reads as more intentional than a shelf full of plastic. If you genuinely cannot keep plants alive, remove the fakes entirely. An empty shelf with good proportions looks better than a shelf holding something pretending to be alive. Number 2. Shoe clutter at the entryway. The genkan is one of the oldest surviving features of Japanese residential architecture. It first appeared during the Heian period, which ran from the late 700s through the 1100s, and it has remained a standard feature of Japanese homes ever since. A genkan is a recessed entryway, slightly lower than the main floor of the house, where shoes are removed before stepping into the living space. The custom of removing shoes before entering a home stretches back over 1,000 years in Japan, rooted in both practical hygiene and a symbolic separation between the outside world and the private interior. Inside a genkan, shoes are stored in a closed cabinet called a getabako. They are not piled on the floor. They are not kicked into a heap by the door. They are placed neatly inside a cabinet, out of sight, so that the first thing a person sees when they enter the home is a clean, ordered threshold. Now think about what most Western entryways look like. Shoes kicked off near the door, sneakers piled on top of boots, sandals scattered across a mat. It does not matter how beautiful the rest of the house is. If the first thing a visitor sees is a pile of dirty shoes, the impression is already set. Invest in a closed shoe cabinet near your front door. Even a simple bench with a lidded storage compartment underneath will do the job. Store shoes out of sight. Keep the entryway floor clear. Your home should greet people with calm, not chaos. In Japan, the genkan is considered the most important architectural feature of the home precisely because it is the first thing anyone experiences. Traditionally, the genkan started in Zen temples, and over time, samurai began incorporating them into their own residences. Eventually, the concept filtered into every level of Japanese housing. Today, even the smallest apartment in Tokyo has a genkan. The custom survived the westernization of Japanese architecture during the Meiji era and continues into the present. That kind of staying power tells you something. The entryway is not a detail. It is the thesis statement of the entire home. Number 1. Overhead fluorescent lighting. In traditional Japanese interiors, lighting was never designed to flood a room. It was designed to suggest a room. Paper lanterns cast a warm, uneven glow. Candles created pockets of light and shadow. Shoji screens filtered daylight into something soft and ambient rather than bright and clinical. This approach to light reflects a broader Japanese aesthetic philosophy described by the novelist Junichiro Tanizaki in his 1933 essay, In Praise of Shadows. Tanizaki argued that Japanese beauty depends on shadow, on darkness, on the interplay between what is visible and what is only partially revealed. He wrote about how lacquerware gleams differently in candlelight than it does under a bare bulb, and how a room lit softly feels more alive than one blasted with uniform brightness. Overhead fluorescent lighting does the opposite of everything Tanizaki described. It eliminates shadows, it flattens textures, it makes skin look pale and walls look sterile. And it is installed in millions of kitchens, bathrooms, and living rooms across the Western world because it is cheap and efficient, not because it makes a room look good. Walk into any expensive restaurant, any luxury hotel, any high-end boutique. Count the fluorescent tubes. You will not find any. Instead, you will find layered lighting, table lamps, wall sconces, recessed warm-toned LEDs, maybe a pendant light with a diffused shade. These layers create depth, warmth, and atmosphere, the same qualities that a paper lantern in a Kyoto tea house has been providing for centuries. Remove your overhead fluorescents, or at least stop relying on them as the primary light source. Add 2 or 3 lamps at different heights around the room. Use warm-toned bulbs, somewhere around 2700 Kelvin. Let corners go slightly dark. A room with shadows has depth. A room with no shadows has the ambiance of a hospital waiting room. Tanizaki wrote his essay almost 100 years ago, and his point has only gotten sharper since then. Modern homes are more aggressively lit than any living spaces in human history, and the rooms that feel the most luxurious are the ones that deliberately pull back from that trend. Shadow is not the enemy of beauty. It is where beauty lives. You started this video probably thinking about what to buy next. A new rug, maybe. A fresh set of throw pillows, another piece of wall art, and a 400-year-old Japanese tea master just made the case that everything you need is already there. You just have too much of it. Sen no Rikyu walked into tea ceremonies held in golden rooms, looked around, and started pulling things out. He replaced ornate Chinese teacups with rough, handmade pottery. He shrank the tea house from 4.5 tatami mats down to 2. He stripped the ceremony to its essentials, and the result was not poverty. It was elegance so sharp that Toyotomi Hideyoshi himself became his patron. That is what subtraction does. If this changed how you see your home, the video on screen right now goes deeper into the history behind everyday design decisions you have never questioned.